What if Africa was never enslaved and never colonized? This is what it looks like. No people taken from their land, no kingdoms destroyed, no borders forced by outsiders. Instead, everything continues. And when things are not broken, they grow. Africa did not need to catch up to the world. It was already moving forward. The Mali Empire was one of the richest empires in the world, built on gold, trade, and strong leadership. Its ruler, Mansa Musa, became a symbol of wealth so great that it affected entire regions beyond Africa. The city of Timbuktu was not just a city, but a global center of learning, filled with scholars, books, and advanced ideas. In the east, the Kingdom of Aksum connected Africa to powerful trade networks across the Red Sea and beyond. In the south, Great Zimbabwe showed advanced engineering through its massive stone structures. This was the starting point, a continent already strong, already connected, and already growing. Now imagine that nothing interrupts this progress. Trade continues to expand across the Sahara, along the coasts, and through rivers that act like natural highways. Gold, salt, ivory, and textiles move freely, but more importantly, ideas move with them. And this creates a chain of development. More trade brings more wealth. More wealth builds larger cities. Larger cities create more innovation. Over time, cities like Timbuktu grow into massive centers of business and knowledge, while coastal ports become some of the busiest in the world. Africa does not just take part in global trade, it begins to shape and control it. At the same time, knowledge continues without interruption. In real history, knowledge was often lost, taken, or disrupted. But in this version, it is preserved and expanded. Libraries grow larger, schools become more advanced, and generations of thinkers build on the work of those before them. This creates another chain. More learning leads to more ideas. More ideas lead to new inventions. New inventions create stronger societies. African astronomy improves navigation, which strengthens trade. Medicine develops through both science and tradition, creating healthier populations. Engineering advances lead to stronger buildings and more complex cities. Knowledge does not stop. It grows continuously, becoming one of Africa's greatest strengths. Leadership also evolves naturally. Without outside interference, African systems of governance are not broken or replaced. Kingdoms, councils, and community-led systems continue to develop over time. This creates stability. And stability creates another chain. Stable leadership reduces conflict. Less conflict allows economies to grow. Stronger economies build more powerful nations. Over generations, smaller kingdoms begin to connect, forming alliances based on trust and shared benefit. Africa becomes more united, not because it is forced, but because it chooses to cooperate and grow together. When all these chains come together, trade, knowledge, and stability, something powerful happens. Growth begins to accelerate. Wealth stays within the continent and builds over time. Ideas continue to improve other ideas. Strong systems create even stronger systems. Africa does not need to recover or restart. It simply continues rising, year after year, century after century. In this world, Africa becomes the longest continuously advancing civilization on Earth. Its cities are among the largest and most advanced. Its centers of learning are respected across the globe. Its trade networks influence economies far beyond its borders. Africa is not trying to catch up to the rest of the world. The rest of the world is trying to catch up to Africa. This is where the story begins. A continent that was never broken, and because of that, never stopped growing. But what happens next when this Africa begins to industrialize, to harness energy, and to build machines? What if the modern world did not begin somewhere else, but began here? What if Africa was never enslaved and never colonized? This is what happens next. A continent that has grown rich from trade, strong from knowledge, and stable in leadership now reaches a new stage. It begins to build machines. It begins to use energy in new ways. It begins to industrialize. And when a continent this prepared enters industry, it does not follow the world. It leads it. Africa already had the foundations. Ironworking, craftsmanship, and engineering knowledge had existed for centuries in many regions. Blacksmiths, builders, and traders were not just workers, they were innovators. Now, with wealth and stability behind them, these skills begin to scale. Small workshops grow into large production centers. Tools become machines. Human effort begins to be supported by mechanical power. This creates a new chain of development. More tools lead to faster production. Faster production creates more goods. More goods increase trade even further. And increased trade brings even more wealth. The cycle continues, but now it moves faster than ever before. Energy becomes the next turning point. Africa's geography gives it a powerful advantage. Massive rivers like the Nile and the Congo are not just natural features, they become sources of energy. Water is used to power early machines, and over time, this develops into large-scale hydro systems. In other regions, heat and natural resources are used to create new forms of fuel and energy. Instead of waiting for ideas from outside, Africa develops its own path into industrial power. Cities begin to change. Trade cities that once focused on markets and learning now expand into industrial centers. Buildings grow taller. Roads become more complex. Transport systems improve. What were once caravans and small ships turn into advanced networks of movement across land and sea. This creates another chain. Better transport leads to faster trade. Faster trade connects more regions. More connections create even larger systems of cooperation. Urban life transforms. Cities are no longer just places of trade. They become centers of production, innovation, and design. Different regions specialize in different industries. Some focus on metal and machinery. Others lead in textiles, shipbuilding, or construction. Africa becomes a continent of interconnected industrial zones, each supporting the other. And because Africa was never colonized, its resources are not taken away, they are used within. Gold, minerals, and raw materials are not exported cheaply. They are processed, refined, and turned into finished goods inside the continent. This is a major shift. It creates another powerful chain. Local resources lead to local industries. Local industries create jobs and skills. Skills lead to innovation. Innovation leads to even stronger industries. Over time, African trade groups evolve into something bigger. They become structured, organized, and highly influential. These are not just merchants anymore. They are powerful networks controlling production, distribution, and technology. They begin to operate across regions, shaping economies on a continental scale. And then comes the global effect. As Africa industrializes, the rest of the world begins to notice. Instead of Africa exporting raw materials, it exports finished products, machines, and technology. Other regions begin to depend on African industry. Trade routes shift. Power shifts. Influence shifts. Now we push the vision further. What if the Industrial Revolution did not begin in Europe, but in Africa? In this world, Africa becomes the center of global industry. Its cities are not only large, they are advanced, organized, and constantly evolving. Its engineers, builders, and thinkers are among the most respected in the world. Its systems of production are studied and copied by others. The same chains continue to grow stronger. Wealth builds faster. Knowledge spreads deeper. Systems become more efficient. Everything connects. Africa is no longer just a strong continent. It becomes the engine of the modern world. And this raises the next question. When a continent leads in industry, controls trade, and continues to grow in knowledge, what happens when it becomes the center of global thinking, science, and education? What happens when Africa becomes not just an industrial power, but a knowledge superpower? What if Africa was never enslaved and never colonized? This is what happens next. A continent that leads in trade, a continent that leads in industry, now becomes the center of knowledge. Because when wealth, stability, and curiosity come together, one thing always follows. Learning grows faster than ever. Africa already had strong traditions of education. Places like Timbuktu were known for deep thinking, research, and teaching. But now, with centuries of uninterrupted growth, these centers do not fade, they expand. Schools become universities. Universities become global institutions. And knowledge becomes one of Africa's greatest exports. This creates a powerful chain of development. More education leads to more thinkers. More thinkers lead to new discoveries. New discoveries lead to stronger societies. And the cycle continues. Knowledge is no longer limited to a few cities. It spreads across the continent. In the north, universities focus on mathematics, astronomy, and law. In the east, scholars study navigation, medicine, and global trade systems. In the west, economic systems, philosophy, and governance are explored and improved. In the south, engineering, architecture, and environmental design grow rapidly. Each region builds its own strengths, but they are all connected. Ideas move quickly. A discovery in one region is shared across the continent. A new invention is improved by others. Knowledge does not stay in one place, it flows. This flow of ideas creates something even more powerful: innovation. For example, advances in astronomy lead to better navigation systems, which improve global trade. Advances in medicine combine scientific study with traditional healing, creating unique and highly effective healthcare systems. Advances in engineering lead to cities that are not only larger, but smarter and more efficient. And because Africa controls its own systems, its knowledge is shaped by its own needs, values, and environment. This is important. It means Africa is not copying the world. The world is learning from Africa. Language also plays a major role. In this world, African languages grow alongside knowledge. They are used in education, science, and diplomacy. Over time, they spread beyond the continent through trade and influence. Students from other parts of the world travel to Africa to study. Scholars learn African languages to access knowledge. Global discussions begin to take place in African centers of learning. This creates another chain. More global interest leads to more exchange. More exchange leads to more influence. More influence strengthens Africa's position even further. Now, think about the long-term effect. When knowledge is never interrupted, it compounds just like wealth. Each generation starts ahead of the last. Each discovery builds on previous discoveries. Each system becomes more advanced over time. Africa does not just keep up with global progress. It defines it. Now we push the vision further. What if the most respected universities in the world were in Africa? What if the greatest scientists, doctors, and thinkers came from African institutions? What if global decisions were guided by ideas developed in African centers of knowledge? In this world, Africa becomes the intellectual heart of the planet. Its universities are the most advanced. Its research shapes the future. Its ideas influence every continent. Africa is no longer just an industrial power. It becomes the place where the future is imagined and created. And this leads to the next stage, when a continent controls trade, leads industry, and shapes global knowledge. What happens when it begins to shape global politics? What happens when Africa becomes not just powerful, but the center of world leadership? What if Africa was never enslaved and never colonized? This is what it becomes. A continent that never stopped growing. A continent that led trade, industry, and knowledge. Now becomes the most powerful region on Earth. By this stage, everything connects. The wealth built from centuries of trade is still growing. The industries built over time are now highly advanced. The knowledge systems continue to produce new ideas every day. Nothing was lost. Everything was built on what came before. And this creates the final chain of development. More knowledge leads to better technology. Better technology leads to stronger systems. Stronger systems create a better quality of life. And this continues at a global scale. Energy becomes one of Africa's greatest strengths. The Sahara, once seen as a challenge, becomes one of the largest sources of solar energy in the world. Massive solar fields stretch across the desert, powering cities, industries, and transport systems. Rivers that once powered early industry now support advanced energy networks. Africa does not struggle for energy. It provides energy to itself and to the world. Cities reach a new level. They are no longer just large, they are intelligent. Transport is fast, clean, and connected across the entire continent. Buildings are designed to work with the environment, not against it. Waste is reduced. Efficiency is high. These are not just cities. They are systems that think, adapt, and improve. Technology also follows its own path. Because Africa shaped its own development, its technology reflects its values. Artificial intelligence is designed with community in mind. Healthcare systems focus on both prevention and long-term well-being. Engineering focuses on sustainability, not just speed or profit. This creates another chain. Better values lead to better design. Better design leads to better systems. Better systems improve everyday life. Now look at the global picture. Africa is not just powerful inside its borders. It influences the entire world. Other continents depend on African technology and energy. African universities lead global research. African systems are studied and copied everywhere. Trade flows through Africa. Ideas come from Africa. Decisions are influenced by Africa. Now we push the vision to its highest level. What if Africa became the world's supercontinent? Not through control or force, but through growth, through consistency, through knowledge, through time in this world. Africa becomes the wealthiest continent. Africa becomes the most advanced in technology. Africa becomes the global center of learning and innovation. And more importantly, Africa becomes the moral compass of the minute categories world. Because its systems were built over time, not forced from outside. Because its growth was continuous, not interrupted. Because its progress included its people, not removed them. Everything leads back to the beginning. Nothing was taken. Nothing was broken. So everything grew. And when a continent is allowed to grow for centuries without interruption, this is what it becomes.